Good morning, everyone. My name is Stewart Young, and I'm the program director at Cafe Reconcile here in New Orleans. Before I start my little talk, could please raise your hand if you came out to the day of service on Saturday morning. Thank you. I appreciate everybody that came out and helped our program. You can find out more about Cafe Reconcile. I'm sure Glenn mentioned it yesterday, but when I went into work yesterday morning, some of our students were buzzing about the activities and the help that we got from some of you all to actually help improve our program. So, as some of the people who came out here or came out to Reconcile on Saturday will know, I'm actually from Belfast, Northern Ireland. Thank you, I like that. So, as a 7-year-old in Northern Ireland, one of my morning activities was arguing with my brother to say, okay, whose turn is it to look underneath the car for a bomb? Growing up as the son of a policeman in Northern Ireland, that was normal. That was what we did. That didn't even seem like that was a huge deal to be able to do that. So there was a lot of stuff when I was growing up, I was like going, that was normal for my life. It's a great thing when I work with other youth that I have no idea what their sense of normal is. Then later on, when I was about 18, 19, I was getting on a train in London, talking away on my best Belfast accent, when I realized, and this was like early 1980s, that some of the people got off the train when they heard my accent. What they were doing is they were making a snap judgment. They were making an assessment. Now, as a society, we're taught to make snap judgments all the time. In an employment basis, we're taught to filter people all the time when we recruit. We often look at things such as the level of education they've had. Did they go to school? Did they go to college? We also look at the criminal background and are taught to look at if they had this one thing that happened in their life or whether they were caught or not caught. Makes them actually a good determination about whether they're a good candidate. I would say we need to have a little bit more complexity than that. I know that we've always talked about the 80-20 rule, and a lot of times I look at that is that we filter a lot of people out in that 20%. We're told often in management that we want to look at, we've got our high performers, we've got that kind of midsection that we want to work because we can really build them up. But the other 20% are the ones that want to work, and somehow we end up keep filtering the same people out. Now, I think there are 3 major consequences about continuing to filter that group of people out. Number one is, and we see this often at Cafe Reconcile where I work, is if you take away hope from people by always filtering out, well, you've got a criminal background, or you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the quite fit that we're looking for, then these same people become more desperate and actually lose hope. And we all know the implications for our wider society for that. From an employment piece, I think there are two other things as well. Is if you're an expanding market or you're a business that wants to grow, you'll find that most of that other 80% are already employed. So unless you're going to pay higher wages to attract them from other people's companies, you've got to figure out a way of working with those young people and adults who are not employed in other businesses. And number 3, which I think is really important for me, is that if you actually want to look outside the box of filtering all these people out, you will find gold. Now, gold is great because sometimes it's really hard to dig for it, and you got to go down deep for it, but you get the rewards if you do. I'm going to give you 3 ways that I think that we can work more effectively with this group of people that are continually filtered out. I think one is when you're hiring, use appropriate screening tools. If somebody's going to come into your business and they're never going to use a computer, why would the application be on a computer? If they're going to be in a business where they're going to work with people, then you want to see how they interact with people. But make your screening tools relevant to the job that they're going to do. Don't make them additional that are just going to screen people out that have all the abilities that you're looking for. Number 2 is when you do hire people, build relationships from day one. Don't wait around until the end of the first week and say, well, I'm going to see if they survive. I'm going to see if they're still here in a couple of days. Build, invest. Because if you put that investment up front, then the people that you employ are going to be able to recognize that from the word go. And then the third thing, and this is one's important to me, is sometimes as employers we need to go the extra mile. You can't do it all the time. But if you do go that extra mile, the rewards can be amazing. I'm going to use an example of a young man came through the program at Cafe Reconcile. Reconcile is a workforce training program, works with any young adult that wants to come in, who wants to learn, who wants to grow, who wants to get into a job. Mainly in the restaurant and hospitality business, but into other fields as well. I have a young man that graduated just over a year ago. Went in to work front of house in one of the top restaurants in the city. About 2 months after he was hired on, and he's working very well, and we were talking to the HR team, he was doing fantastically, we got a call and said, this young man has actually been arrested. And we're like, okay. So why was he arrested? So we dug a little deeper. He was arrested for non-payment of child support. We're like, okay, so let's figure out what we got to do. So we went back and talked to the HR department of the restaurant chain that he worked at, and they said, that's impossible. I said, what do you mean? He's already having his wages garnished for non-payment of child support. And we're like, how can that be? We discovered there's some obscure federal rules that you can't take away from somebody who's on benefits. And whatever way, it was a very complex situation. So we're like, okay, so what do we need to do? And they're like, well, you can't do anything yet. So what we did is we went that extra mile. We had our mental health counselor at Cafe Reconcile, worked with a young man, talked to him while he was in prison, talked to him while he was locked up, talked to his mother, said, hold on, keep it together. We're going to work through this. We're going to get you out. You're going to move forward. We had our caseworker, our social worker, who actually came together and worked with the family to say, all right, let's work through the legal business. Let's figure out what we need to do to get this young person out. Is it money? Is it whatever? And then we worked with the HR manager, our employment and education coordinator worked with the HR saying, all right, we're going to keep the information flowing. We're going to let you know exactly what's happening about what's happening with this young man. The end result is it costs us about $100, which we actually lent to the family. They put up the rest. It took us about a week, and we were able to help the young man get out of prison on the Friday. He was back at work on the Saturday. Now, this is a young man that could be very, very easily lost to the criminal justice system, could have disappeared, or could have spent some time in prison and come out, lost his job, gone back to the streets where he was from. He didn't. He came out. He was able to be successful. He went back to work. He's since been promoted. 3 months after that incident, the young man was actually able to pay back the money that we lent him. 6 months after he was arrested, he actually had enough money saved that he bought a car. The first thing he did when he got the car was he actually went home to show his mother. The second thing was he brought the car and his mother to Cafe Reconcile to show us. And then 9 months after that young man was in prison, we actually took him on a trip. We took him, Glenn, who you met yesterday, he might even have mentioned him, but he took him to Washington, D.C. He took him to the White House. He took him to meet some of the top politicians in the country to talk about how we can work with policies that don't lock people up, but use their talents and use their skills and keep them on the right track and turn them into taxpayers, colleagues, workers, leaders in the community. The way I want to finish is, if you attempt to employ, or if you want to work hard to employ the 20% that everybody else casts off, sometimes it's not going to work. Sometimes it is going to work. And sometimes you're going to discover people that are so amazing, they're going to change the way that you do business. And that's the fortunate thing that I get to do every day at Reconcile, is work with amazing young men and women who our job is for them is to support them so they can demonstrate their talents. Thank you very much for letting me be here today.